Hello, 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 and welcome to another episode of the Mantic Radio Videocast. I'm Andrew Sherman, and today we're going to be doing a review of the Mars Attacks board game produced by Mantic Games. Now, this game just came to all the Kickstarter backers within the last couple of months, and this is actually the first time I'm going to get a chance to play the game, as I was not a full-fledged backer. I only backed to get the digital rules. Mark Zielinski, my friend and co-host on Mantic Radio, went ahead and went full bore on in and got a chance to get all the goodies, and he was able to stop by my house over the holidays in order to get a chance to break it out, show me what all cool kind of toys he got, and kind of brag that he's got this and I don't. Today we're going to be playing where I'm the U.S. and soldiers, and he's going to be the Martians. Now, what you're seeing here is a basic setup of the board, and Mars Attacks is a grid system board game where it's a lot like Dead Zone in the fact that each individual square has a designation, and you have models that move so many squares at a point in time. Now, what you do is you use these little tokens to show whether or not a model has moved back and forth. It's the little exclamation points there. They're called activation tokens, and these activation tokens are you put one on each model, and it gets 2 actions per activation token. You can either move 2 squares, you can go ahead and move 1 square and then shoot, or you can take both squares and go ahead and aim and shoot. And there's a lot of different things that you can do, but you can only move in certain directions based off of the terrain. Sometimes you have to dodge around. It's actually a pretty cool mechanic. Now, in this game, we're going to be playing. It's just one of the trial scenarios. We're going to be looking for these tokens, and my tokens are pictured is in the picture here, and the ones I'm looking for are actually alien tech. The Martians, basically, the storyline is the Martians have come down, they've crash landed. I'm looking for their alien tech in order to try to, get some breakthroughs in order to help win me the war. Mark is coming down, and he's actually trying to get animals so they can go back and continue to experiment to release on humankind. Basically, when you start the game in this scenario, you go ahead and you enter from off the board. Again, we made mention earlier that each model gets 2 moves per activation token. In this case, you'll see the guys on the far left were able to move on 1 square and then take a shot. Now, each one of these models have different sets of equipment. My equipment that I have, since I have 7 U.S. soldiers, I think it is I have 2 light machine guns, and I also have the rest of them with carbines. So the carbines can go ahead and shoot 5 squares, and my light machine guns can actually shoot 12 squares. As far as Mark goes, Mark's Martians can only go ahead and shoot 4 squares. It kind of sounds funny, Mark's Martians, right? So one of the mechanics I really like about this game is how you actually kill an opposing model. Whether it be close combat or whether or not it be shooting, you actually have to, both the attacker and the defender have to roll dice. The attacker has to roll how many times that they hit, and the defender has to roll how many armor saves they make. So not only do you have to roll better than your opponent, but in some cases, you also have to punch through armor. Martians actually they have an automatic pass for an armor save. There's also an exploding D8 mechanic, so if you roll an 8 on the 8-sided die, you actually get a free roll. It's pretty cool. Now, flaming cows. Who doesn't love flaming cows? This is a picture of one of the cards that you actually get a chance to. They're the random cards that you get a chance to play throughout the game. And each person actually has a hand of, I believe, 5 cards in the game. And you get to play them instead of making an activation of one of your models. And in this case, Mark played a card that allowed a flaming cow to basically drop down on the board and start rampaging around on the tabletop. It was pretty funny and pretty cool. It gave a nice, good visual for the game. And speaking of visuals, take a look at this. This is just a piece of the scenery over here, right? And the piece of scenery is a resin cast spaceship that's fallen down on the ground. And when you have beautiful pieces of scenery like that, the fences, the broken buildings, that all come to you, pre-clipped, they're not on sprues, you can create this, great visual on the tabletop, and even though it's a board game, get a really good view of what is actually happening, which is kind of huge when you're playing a board game, especially if you're doing a crossover from a board game and a miniature market. Now, one thing I'll say is there's a lot of random events that happen in this game. The card mechanic as a whole, not only can you drop down flaming cows, not only can you have cars just go flying down the road, basically getting blasted from outside the board edge, and just scraping across and wiping out all kind of miniatures. But you get things that you can do like tactical bombardments that you really just don't see coming, and you can just waylace to the whole landscape. It's actually pretty cool. These card mechanics actually are set up in twofold, where each card, except for the ones that only have one action, each card is actually set with a Martian side and a human U.S. soldier side. So depending on whether or not you're the Martian, the card acts in one facet, and depending on whether or not you're the U.S. soldier, it acts in another. In this case, you're seeing a support fire harassment card as well as a heat ray card for the Martians. Now, one thing that you have to keep in mind is that these cards, there's different boxes on them, and some of them have different levels. So there's multiples of a lot of these cards in the actual game. And if you hold on to them for a while instead of discarding them, what you can find is you can get 2 or 3 of the same type of card and become a lot more accurate, right? So if you have support fire, instead of hitting only with only one card, where you might be completely random and miss, you can be locked on and actually take out 3, 4, 5 guys depending on what the card matchup is. So this card in particular is an unfriendly fire card. This is one of the cards that doesn't have a dual purpose. And this one, you pick a random square, and all models in the square and the adjacent 8 squares are hit with 5 dice, 5+ shooting attack. Again, we're talking about a D8 mechanic, so when you roll 5 dice, everything that's a 5+ would actually be a penetrating hit. If you roll so many above the armor, for any model that's hit, you could actually kill it, or you could pin it and knock it on over. In this case, being it's a random selection for the square, and there's no way you can pair this up with another one, what happens is it's an 8. The board is 8 squares by 8 squares. So the first number you roll is basically across to the opponent, and the second number you roll is the left to right square. In this case, when Mark goes ahead and plays this, because he's actually losing at this point in time, Mark accidentally hits his own model and knocks him on over. It's kind of funny. So the next turn he actually gets the chance to play, Mark is going to have to spend a whole turn doing nothing but standing up and won't be able to move anymore. He did it as a long shot in order to come across and take some of my models out. But, because in a moment here, you're going to see that not only does he not have anything in this picture, but all his models have already been peeled off by me. But he also did it to see how the mechanic worked, right? And I can see how a well-placed bombardment would really make a difference. But we've been playing now for probably about 3 turns as these pictures go on, and what you're seeing is I've picked up 2 alien techs and 4 Martians. Now, being he only started out with, I think, 5 Martians and 3 alien techs for me to pick up, I've pretty much got this game in the bag. It's a beginning game. It's just that the dice haven't really gone Mark's favor. Really, when I played this game, I was really worried because I heard a lot of things on YouTube that the Martians were extremely powerful and that they were very hard to kill. Now, this is true unless you're like me and in this game and rolling a lot of exploding 8s. So no matter if I rolled 3 dice for an aim shot or 4 dice for an aim shot because there was no cover, what I was finding was that you get a couple of lucky 8s, and all of a sudden, you're getting 3, 4, 5 pens, and your opponent just can't make enough armor saves to keep him alive. And once he doesn't have any models on the board, well, guess what? I can just walk across and pick up all my alien tech anyway. Now, even though the flaming cow is running around and causing all kind of chaos, we can't avoid it forever. We've got to get ourselves into close combat because, let's be honest, Mark doesn't have many models left on the board, and we need to see how this works. So Mark decides on his right hand side, he's going to advance up, and we're going to get in close combat. And close combat works very similar to what the shooting combat does, except for you get a chance to defend or survive. Basically, you can attack back if you defend, and you can actually cause wounds to your opponent, but Martians aren't as good in hand-to-hand combat as humans are. I don't know why. It must be those glass bubbles around their head. But in essence, again, the mechanic works the same. You both roll dice, and depending on how many successes you have, you either punch through the armor and you kill your opponent, or you just go ahead and defend off the attacker. So yeah, after we go ahead and roll it out, I kill Mark, and that's basically the last model he has left on the board. I get a huge victory, getting all 5 Martians and all 3 tokens I was looking for on the board. I only lose 1 guy and only allow Mark to get 2 of the tokens he was looking for, so there's no really animals going back to get tested. So the huge win to the U.S. soldiers. As far as the game goes, that's kind of the wrap-up of the review. The game is actually a lot of fun. If you're looking for it online right now, you can get it on the Mantic website for $49.99 in pounds or $79.99 in US dollars. I would highly recommend this game. I'm actually a little bit sad now after having played it that I didn't get a chance to go ahead and get into this Kickstarter. I've gotten into a lot of other Kickstarters over the time frame, so I'm going to have to go ahead and bug Mark to play again. But I may also invest in some of the add-ons that they have on now on the site, because you can actually pick up a Mars Attacks Dead Zone faction for both the U.S. soldiers as well as the actual Martians themselves. I think that's pretty cool. And some of the side scenery that you can get. The big stompy robots are still only available to the Kickstarter backers, but I think that some of the models that they have would work really good, whether or not you're looking into getting into Warpath or whether or not you're looking into converting for other miniature-based games. Like, I'll probably be using the big stompy robot for something along the lines of a steel behemoth for Kings of War. So that pretty much wraps up the episode, though. Hope you enjoyed the review of Mars Attacks, the miniature-based board game from Mantic Games. If you guys enjoyed this cast, go ahead and leave us feedback and, let us know on the different mediums. Find us on Facebook and Twitter. And let us, check out our website, www.ohiohammer.com, for more Mantic Radio goodness and for more from the Ohio Hammer Network. Until then, I'll talk to you guys later.